Hello and welcome to Political Bedlam. I'm Chandler Ogle.
And I'm Cass Lee Wantland.
This is our inaugural episode, so I think it's a good idea to express why we started this podcast and what we want to do with it. As for me, I listen to a lot of political podcasts, and they all kind of sound the same. There's not really any actual dialogue. So I thought that having hosts from both sides of the political spectrum is a lot better. And if you just have it from one side, it's kind of a disservice to both the listener and the conversation. We intend to provide nuance and perspective from two pretty different viewpoints. We talk at work a lot. We agree on a lot, but we also disagree on a lot. The Bedlam, of course, is, the greatest rivalry on earth, man. OSU, OU. It's a local reference. But also, there'll be some butting of heads. There'll be some arguments. But yeah, that's for me.
If it's good, there will be arguments.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm here because I was asked to be here, and I don't have a lot to do on a Friday evening. So, my name's Cass. I work with Chandler, and we've had a few brief political discussions at work. We have a nice rapport. This will be polite at times, angry at others, but it should always be fun. I don't think that centrism is important. Let's just start off there. I think centrism is death, and it's important to have not one viewpoint expressed, but the correct viewpoint expressed. So, I don't know, that might be a jumping off point either now or later, but I digress.
Oh, no, coming in hot. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
This is where we're at.
All right, well, I guess continue that. Something that everyone is hating right now. James Comey, man. Dude. Nobody likes him. For those people who don't know, he was an FBI director, was appointed by Obama, and he wrote a letter back in October of 2016 that basically stated they were reopening the whole email thing for Hillary Clinton. Everyone remembers that. Took up the news forever. But he wrote that, and it was a month before the election. A lot of people say that turned the election for Trump. Then he had a meeting where Trump reportedly demanded his loyalty. And then he fired him, and now he's written a book, and he's just making everybody angry.
He's always been pissing everybody off. If he's not helping your candidate lose, he's getting fired and becoming a hero for being part of the resistance, which is not a real thing. And, he's... I don't think he gets a fair rap, but I think he brought it on himself.
Yeah, I agree.
think that's all on him. I don't think he's a bad person. I think he's a person of a certain level of integrity, and he has his ethics. But I think he is so tone deaf and so stupid. I'm not a fan of Comey. And when I say stupid, I mean he's not politically savvy. And I'm sure he never thought he'd be in a political position like he is now. I probably thought he'd just be a desk jockey, a bureaucrat. In the way that an FBI director is. He's just kind of looks like a fool.
Yeah, and he's been taking it from both sides.
Absolutely.
Like Hillary representatives have been talking out about him. Nick Merrill, said, I think he said something to him on Twitter. I don't remember what it was, but the former special counsel to Bill Clinton, Lanny Davis, called him a liar in a 4-page issue of the op-ed of the New York Times. But none of them are as bad as President of the United States tweeting about you 4 times a day.
President has a Twitter?
Oh, yeah. Let's not get into that one. But he's called him slippery and the worst FBI director in
Slippery
history.
Comey.
Slippery Comey.
Slippery Comey.
What was it? Little Marco, Lion Ted, Crooked Hillary.
Was it Crazy
Bernie? Pretty simple. It might have been Crazy Bernie.
I'm sure it was Crazy Bernie.
I don't know. The man's Twitter is a mess. It can be entertaining sometimes, though. But even though he's writing this book and going on this huge press tour, he's likely to still be involved in Mueller's investigation because his still classified memos are the reason the Russia probe was started in the first place. Cass, is he still a major player himself, or is this just a publicity stunt or a cash grab?
Can I say all of the above?
Yeah.
I think that his book doesn't tell us anything new. It doesn't reveal any big secrets. It does give us his impression of the president morally, what he thinks of the president as a moral individual, and it's not a pretty picture. But, that's old news. What good is talking about the president's morality going to do for anyone? It all comes down to if you trust Comey or not, and I think the group of people who trust him is slim. So...
No, I definitely agree with that.
And why shouldn't he be entitled to a little cash?
You should launch into the Cuba thing. Let's talk Cuba.
All
bro.
right. Well, for the first time since 1959, Cuba is going to be led by a non-Castro brother.
Big deal.
The president stepped down. Raul Castro, who's been the president since 2008, stepped down and placed his successor in charge, whose name is coming up on my phone on my list of notes. Miguel Diaz-Canel.
Canal, that's right. Yeah,
Canel, yeah. Gotta have the hyphen.
Gotta have the hyphen. Come on.
He was sworn in on president this week. Castro was president for 12 years. His brother Fidel was the previous president before him since 1958, as I mentioned, 1959. Excuse me, as I mentioned. And here's what we know about here's what we know about Miguel. He's a hard party liner. He's a communist through and through. He likes the direction. He does well. Cuba's not doing great. Their economic reforms have stalled, and in the last 4 years, they've really kind of come to a standstill. And with Trump at the helm, their relationship with America has deteriorated further.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like this new president is going to change any of that. He's it's complicated because so much of how they proceed in the future depends on our relationship with them, because China's not giving them any attention anymore. Russia's not giving them any attention anymore. It was going to be us. Venezuela has no attention to give them. They're in a crisis all their own.
Right. People eating rabbits and stuff.
Yeah, if they're lucky.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of information out there about him except that he's a party guy. He's a technocrat. He does things by the book. He wants to continue the purpose of the revolution. He is an outspoken leader in LGBT activism, which is bizarre. Cuba does not have the best history when it comes to gay rights. But if that's the one positive thing he's bringing, good, I suppose. But they're not going to be capitalist overnight. He's not no pun intended, a revolutionary figure. He's a Cuban revolutionary figure, so he's going to keep the course. But yeah, this is the first time it's been a non-Castro since they overthrew Batista, so there's that.
Yeah, no, I agree with all that. I also think, though, it's important to, I guess, reference like the framework around it. I mean, they are saying he's the president, but I mean, with any communist country, at least mainstream communist country, this is true in China. I think this was true during the Soviet Union, but don't quote me on that. The real power is the secretary of the Communist Party or whoever's in charge of the party, because they don't run a two-party. They aren't like us, like where the Republican and Democratic parties are powerful. They still don't have absolute control because they run against each other. In communist countries, there's only one party, and the head of that party is still going to be Raul Castro
for the next 2 years. Absolutely,
yeah, at least till 2021. I mean, at the same time, even though he's getting this title, writing a couple op-eds, Castro is still kind of seems like he's brokering the power. I mean, he's just at least saying where it's going to go. He said the power will remain consolidated in Diaz-Canel, like it was with the Castros for at least a little while, and who knows what a little while means. But you know, you're right, definitely about their economy. Their average salary is still just $30 a month,
and that's for public employees. That's
yeah. I mean, it kind of happens. It seems to happen. It kind of China escaped it somehow, but at the end of the Soviet Union, when communist falls, it turns out government is really bad at just divvying out those resources and pretending to be a free market, like they did in Russia, and just ended up going all to oligarchs. And I don't think that's a fault of communism necessarily, but that's just kind of what happens whenever you try to shift like capitalism to a large a country that was communist for so long. And I just think that's kind of the result. Is well, that's rough at first.
That's what China's doing right. Is if you look at communist theory and you look at Marxism, you understand that you don't just become communist. You have to go through several stages, and China's backtracked on a lot of their communist legislation for a reason, and that's to build wealth. If they use capitalism to build wealth, they can, and I'm talking in big political theory and big sweeps of drama, they can become communist because they have the wealth to support it. And that's to speak nothing on China's horrendous human rights violations. I would hardly call them a moral country, but they're doing communism correctly.
Right.
They're getting there slowly by using capitalism to advance socialism to fund ultimately communism, and we'll get into that more later, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
No, you spoke to the human right record. Cuba's still ranked not free by the nonpartisan Freedom House. No, I mean, I guess I'd ask you, since you kind of seem to this more within your wheelhouse, what can Cuba do to be more like China and kind of just escaping that economic lull?
I don't know that they want to be more like China. I think if they want to look at, if they want to be more like China, they can open the borders and they can start allowing small businesses to flourish. But I think their goal should be to be more like Venezuela. What brought Venezuela down was, oh boy, I wasn't expecting this question, so I don't have like the map out right now. But Japan was going to make an agreement with Venezuela that would have kept them from having this economic crisis they're in now, because Venezuela saw it coming, and the United States under Obama made an agreement with Japan, some sort of trade agreement that would keep Japan from helping Venezuela, and we did this.
Oh, we specialize in that.
Yeah, well, yeah. We did this specific agreement in order to keep Venezuela from being economically soluble. Mm-hmm. So that, I think what they should do is they should open up their economy. They should allow for small private industry. But I don't think the people want to go full capitalist. So, I mean, there's certainly people who are. But and as time goes on, people forget the terror that was the Batista rule. But
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so
I mean, enough people have gone on. I mean, you kind of forget about that.
They forget about that, and they see the terror that Fidel Castro inflicted on the people. So
no, I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's a familiar system, and there are definitely ways where they can improve the lives for all their citizens and their economy while remaining
tourism
communist.
alone.
Oh yeah, and everything. Tourism alone. I mean, I liked that about the end of the Obama administration, that they were opening up relations with Cuba. I actually was talking about, I don't know if this is just a jerk American thing of me to say, like, we could go party and we could go vacation down in Cuba. It'd be cheap, and I could see another country. And I don't know if I'm a cheap American for wanting to go party in a place that I think would be cheap to vacation. I also think it would be fun to actually go there, but with the Trump administration, I don't really know.
Well, it's cheap, but it's also paradise. I mean, that island is beautiful beyond. Yeah. I mean, we can't.
I've seen Rum Diaries. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So,
all right.
Good luck to the Cuban people for not doing anything and having your new leaders chosen for you. I guess
things are really going to change. Things are really going to change.
I mean, we're not going to warm up to them anytime soon, and they like the direction they're headed. At least the people in power do. So everything's the same. That's the takeaway.
Yep, you're right. Now, while this still is a podcast, we are going to have to bring you a word from one of our non-existent sponsors.
Oh, I love this sponsor.
Yeah. This pod is brought to you, well, I should say not brought to you, by Casper Mattresses. Cass, do you often still feel tired after you wake up?
Every damn day.
Then you need a new mattress, and boy, do I have the right product for you.
Is it a Casper mattress?
It might be. If you normally get 8 hours of sleep a night, Casper's mattresses will actually extend that to 9 hours of sleep a night. The secret is in the microfibers that have temporal properties, adding a 25th hour to the day and an extra hour to your sleep. At least 100 guys named Jim sleep on a Casper mattress. Probably more, I'll bet.
At least 100?
At least 100 guys named Jim.
Can you verify those statistics?
We're going to get Jeremy, our one of our producers, look up how many guys named Jim sleep on a Casper mattress.
Jeremy, do what you can.
Also, Casper has award-winning customer service available 24/7 for all of your mattress troubleshooting needs. Can't figure out how to lie down on your mattress? That happens to me all the time. The folks at Casper Mattresses have got you covered and will walk you through it on the phone or website.
Now, I've got a question. If they use special temporal technology and they can extend your sleeping time to 25 hours a day, how come they're not available 25 hours a day? Why is it just...
They are, but only when you are sitting or laying on your Casper mattress.
I expect better from Casper. They've made a terrific product, and I'd like to see more.
Casper has a 100% satisfaction guarantee that you and your partner will get the best sleep of your lives, and if something happens, they will ship you a new partner for free.
What if my partner is gender nonconforming?
They're Casper. They'll get it done.
Excellent.
Go to Casper.com, that's CASPER, and see what all the buzz is about. Casper, come sponsor our podcast.
Please.
Our next non-existent sponsor is Blue Apron. Do you hate cooking, walking, sitting, and pretty much all things? Well, Blue Apron can help with one of those things. Cook delicious meals in your own kitchen. If you have pots and pans and stuff, I actually don't have many right now in my house, so while this may not be the product for me, it's definitely the product for you. Stop being lazy and gross, stop eating fast food, and cook healthy meals in your own home with Blue Apron. Blue Apron. Now, I guess I'll launch into the third news story.
Let's launch into the third news story. I had
Also,
significantly
Blue Apron-
less to say about Blue Apron
Well,
than I
don't
did
you want the
Casper.
free meals? I mean, I'm hoping we get at least the product. If
I
not
mean,
the
I'm known to
sponsorships.
sleep on the floor. I have to eat, so I didn't want to like piss off Blue Apron.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think that was a good ad for Blue Apron, though. I mean, a lot of people are too lazy to cook, and they send you delicious stuff.
They do send you delicious.
This is still an advertisement for you, Blue Apron.
There
real
is
talk.
some cooking required for Blue Apron. I just have to
absolutely
disclaimer that.
Don't tell your lies.
Yeah,
Don't tell your lies in here.
That's our guest.
This is a room of truth.
coming up. We'll run one more story, and this is a fun one. Starbucks is all over the news today and this past week. For those who I guess are not on social media or watching a TV, it's been everywhere. Basically, two black men went into a Philadelphia Starbucks to meet back in January. They were asked to go up their table for paying customers, which they did not. They then asked to use the restroom, and the manager again said it was for paying customers only. But then a white guy walked out who was apparently given the code, even though he didn't buy anything either. This whole thing was on video. It only went viral after another incident happened in Los Angeles, where they asked, actually it was two black guys in Los Angeles as well that were videoing it, where they asked to use the bathroom, weren't allowed, and were asked to leave by the manager. They refused, and she called 911, where they were then arrested. CEO said he was sick to his stomach, and there were protests that occurred in Philly. Kevin Johnson, CEO again, said they were closed down 8,000 stores to provide racial bias training to about 175,000 workers. Your thoughts, Cass?
Oh boy, do I have them.
Let's unpack this.
Well, there's a lot to unpack.
Absolutely.
I think, the word problematic gets thrown around a lot, but I think it's applicable here especially. Well, for starters, I really think this is a result not of like changing times or even of Starbucks's shortcomings, which it is. It's about our ability to film things. These stories aren't new. This has been happening since the beginning of the United States. We're just able to film them now, and we're able to film them in mass. And I think that is a good thing, because we can expose this kind of behavior, which we tell ourselves we find disgusting, but it's almost like these videos give us permission to believe it.
Right.
Because I know personally that I never thought about these issues until about 4 or 5 years ago, when we started getting videos every week about them. That being said, I don't... It's interesting that Starbucks is closing their stores, because they're obviously not the culprit. It's society at large. It's interesting that Starbucks is doing more than any police station has ever dared to do. So that's good. I think it's unwarranted, but I'm glad it's happening.
Right. And I guess while I'm on the subject, something that has come out since then, I don't know about the Los Angeles story, but when it came
I haven't heard that yet.
When it came to the Philadelphia story, the manager who supposedly threw them out has only been identified as Holly, is apparently what some people are calling a social justice warrior, and a bunch of people spoke out on her behalf, saying she's not racist, and that it was Starbucks policy. Starbucks policy that was, I guess, more classist than anything. I don't know. I didn't read the post. I just heard about it today.
It's almost like classism and racism are intertwined.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know if we have time to unpack intersectionality, but they're talking about using, when they say racial bias training, that usually includes the IAT, the implicit association test, which has been getting more negative coverage by conservative pundits.
No, I haven't heard about this. Tell me more about this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the criticism is fair in a way. It's basically the implicit association test, the IAT. They give it at a lot of colleges. It's kind of like, hey, you're racist, and we'll show you how. Basically, they'll take white faces and black faces, and they'll pull them up on a screen, and they'll say like a sentence like, "Are you more someone with, I guess, associating them with like a criminal, or like would you associate this person with a businessman?" But they've been doing this for a long time, and it's been getting a lot more criticism lately. There was a great article by Jesse Singal on The Cut. I read about it. But I mean, it's also predictably gotten attacked a lot by several conservative pundits that I've heard since this story broke, including Ben Shapiro. I heard something about it on Alex Jones. Well, not heard, because who can actually listen to Alex Jones? I read it.
You're throwing out a lot of really reputable sources.
Well,
here.
I mean, I like Ben Shapiro. I mean, we don't have to get into that right now, but I mean, he's better than Alex Jones.
Can we get into it later?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
We'll get into it later. Starbucks stock has only dropped 1.5 points since the news became viral. So I guess, America, you are racist. I think now is a good time to bring on our guest. He is running as a Libertarian candidate for Oklahoma's 81st
House District.
81st House District. Jeff Levy, old friend of mine.
Yes, we should probably get that full disclosure out of the way.
Yes,
so
very old
it
friend.
Doesn't seem like we're perpetuating the system.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I am. I'm really excited to be on the show today. Whenever you told me you had an interview lined up, this was way more than I ever anticipated it being. So I'm just glad to be here. I'm glad to get to talk to you guys. You guys seem sharp as a tack. Wanted to jump in a couple times, but we gotta keep time considerations.
Yeah,
well,
absolutely.
if you have you back, I think we'll allow it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, he'll have to come back, especially once he wins his election.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Possible donors.
Yeah, that was not a subtle hint. Go support Jeff. I haven't even heard him talk yet. I'm just shilling for my old friend. Might not be an objective interviewee.
I do not know this person. He is a stranger. He does groom his beard properly, so he gets points for
He's
that.
a good-looking man.
But he calls himself a libertarian, which I find suspect. We'll get to it.
I know this is an audio format, but I mean, if you were seeing Jeff right now, you'd understand what we were talking about.
Handsome man.
Well, thanks. It's not just my mom anymore. It's my wife who tells me that I'm special.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's
family man voters. I want to point that out.
That's important.
I guess you want to just kind of talk about like your platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
Yeah,
I mean, my biggest thing is I've got 4 kids. I'm a parent. So seeing the school crisis has just kind of woken me up. I was explaining before the show got started, I really thought around the time that the teacher walkouts were going down that the legislature would see this collective action and decide that there was something that needed to be done. And it just didn't quite pan out that way. And, something you teach your kids is, if there's something wrong, you try to fix it. If there's something that's broken, don't wait for someone else to come along. So, if you get on the ballot and try to run, give voters a third choice in November, why not? So, I mean, that's my platform is definitely not why not. I can definitely get more into policy specifics. But, I mean, that's kind of the why behind why I wanted to run. I mean, I want my kids to have the best shot at a good future as possible. And, I think we've got a lot of kids in our school system who are, they're intellectually bright. They just don't get the right guidance.
His kids are super sweet, by the way. I'm the only one in this room who's met them, but
I'm biased.
They're
so
very
I
worth
can't
running
vouch
for to
them.
protect. I mean,
Right, yeah,
I think so. I'm objective. Yeah. Keep going. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. So, I mean, that's my why. Like, I'm not going to tell you that I prayed and God told me, yeah, you need to run. I don't have any messianic notions about myself. I'm just a parent like, most of the voters out there, and I see a problem and I have ideas on how we can fix it. But, one person isn't going to change the face of the electorate in Oklahoma. Just getting on the street and meeting people and getting signatures when I was trying to get signatures to get on the ballot. I mean, just meeting people, there's a huge appetite for change, at least locally in Edmond. And I think that appetite is throughout the state. Some places probably more concentrated than others. But I think that, I think this election is going to be different. It may still be Republicans winning, but I don't think we're going to have very many incumbents cruising to victory.
No.
Not that I'm a forecaster.
I'd love to see that.
I agree. I think the time of the incumbent is hopefully at an end. Whether or not you fill that spot remains to be seen, but hopefully whoever holds it currently. Actually, I think it's an open seat, isn't it?
No, actually, Mike Osborne's the incumbent.
Okay.
So,
let's get him
throwing
out.
that name out there.
Regardless
but yeah,
of who you
actually,
vote for, get him out.
he has a primary challenge. He has 2 pro-education women running against him. The Democrat candidate's a woman. So, I honestly, I was talking to someone, and I do think women are going to be the deciding demographic in this election, because I think it's going to come to a lot of women, regardless of party identity, deciding exactly what I decided, that my kids are worth it. That, this is something we all need to agree that this is what we need to fight for, and this is something worth doing. And I think that that's out there, that appetite for change, and this notion of what we're doing isn't working is not just me. I mean, I met over 100 people who all wanted to, help me get on the ballot because they thought we need to change. So, I mean, I'm anxious to get the message out there. I, as a third party candidate in Oklahoma, there's not a huge percentage chance of victory. So, I mean, for me, I just want to make the conversation move towards more of where I am. That's what I would consider winning in this campaign. If I can make a Republican or a Democratic candidate adopt a position of mine or have to directly respond to something I'm calling for and maybe even adjust their own position to reflect that, to bring in more people underneath their banner, then I'd call that a huge win. To, I use the term liberal here as in like more of a classically liberal, but to liberalize the conversation and move it more in where I am, I would consider that a huge victory. So,
absolutely. Well, let's try and up your winning percent chance tonight. Get you some more exposure. I guess when we're talking about, questions about your platform and your message, probably let Cass take the lead on this. We're probably pretty similar. I have a lot of libertarian leanings, so probably best to let you just get grilled by someone who is not exactly libertarian.
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call this a grilling, but I do have a question about how you're
sizzling.
Okay, I'll write it down.
For a grill. It's really funny.
No.
Really funny.
All right, so you're running as a libertarian in Oklahoma, which definitely has a red streak going on strong the past 10, 15 years. There are certain advantages, certainly, to running as a libertarian. There's lots of disadvantages. But what gives you the perception that this is and let me be frank, a good idea to run as a libertarian?
Well,
Not you yourself
it's
as a
valid
person.
question. It absolutely is, because libertarians by and large are seen as a party of essentially anarchism, no state functioning in any way, no taxation and things like that. And when you hear that there's a candidate running from a party like that in a situation that we're in, obviously voters are skeptical. One of the disadvantages is that there is a perception for those who have heard of libertarians.
Yeah, when your party is too high to go vote.
Yeah, Gary Johnson said
we're
back
not the
a little
Green
too.
Party. Jeez, careful. But no.
Green Party. There
Gary
you go.
Johnson was probably high on the campaign trail. Who are we kidding? But John McAfee definitely was.
Oh yeah, probably making his own drugs too. Now, that's another story.
Right, but yeah, there's definitely disadvantages. I've had people, hear libertarian and, say, I'm not going to even sign your petition. Like, I don't even think people should have the choice to vote for you. Like, I don't support libertarianism. And, libertarians are a prickly bunch. There's a reason the symbol of the party's a hedgehog, and that doesn't surprise me at all to have that. So that one of the advantages and disadvantages is that we aren't as well known. We as in like the Libertarian Party, because I feel like libertarians kind of, all kinds of people are attracted to libertarianism. So I can't speak for the monolithic, mass that is people who identify that way. But the Libertarian Party, we aren't as well known in Oklahoma because we haven't been on the ballot since, I think 2004 was the last time we were on the ballot, before 2016. So we're still relative unknown. People will at least listen to your message. And that's the thing. I want people to hear that there's a third option.
Yeah, it was exciting, man.
Yeah, and one of the disadvantages compared to running as a Republican or Democrat is like the political machinery. There's no libertarian donors, I can tell you that much. We don't have any bundlers out there getting people to write $2,700 checks and all that jazz like a Republican or a Democrat might. We don't have the
rich libertarians. Are you listening? Come find Jeff.
Koch brothers, just
come on,
hook me up. Yeah, so there's
We'll
definitely
revisit that.
The advantages and the disadvantages are often pretty. Sorry, we got a note. Since when? 2000. Yeah, so we had a 4 general election drought there that we ended. So the advantages and disadvantages are often different sides of the same coin. Whereas you aren't known and you don't have that party recognition, you can kind of carve out your niche. And that's the thing. Like we have, I think, 12 total libertarian candidates who are running across the entire state, and 3 of them are for governor. So, we aren't exactly mobbing the ballots. So we can all kind of carve out our niche for what our message is. And, what that, by and large as a party, we're looking forward. We're progressive. We're the first, state to elect a transgender person to the executive council of our party. Our state secretary is transgender.
It's a big step.
Yeah. And I'm proud to associate myself with that group because it's about liberty for everyone. I'm not here to discriminate against you based on your creed, your religion, your color of skin, nothing, anything like that, your gender identity. It's all, we're here for everyone. And so that's the thing. Like, I think that why it's a good idea is we're trying to be inclusive. You know, there's a Dax Eubank. He ran as a Republican. He's run as a Libertarian. He came up with what we call the 4M test: Muslims, marijuana, Mexicans, and marriage. The 4 M's, you know, and that can kind of help you. That's the quote unquote litmus test of libertarianism that I like to go through, because it was something that whenever I was first getting involved in the Oklahoma liberty movement, I wasn't necessarily on the same page as everyone when it came to the 4 M's. And then, you know, I've thought about it and worked my way through it and, you know, kind of resolved the issues I had. And you know, like to take questions on that if you're interested. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that libertarians, like I said, we don't have the huge political machine, so we don't have blanket calls. You know, we aren't the GOP we're going to cut taxes even in the face of our school system crumbling. You know, we were discussing it. If we're trying to raise funding and the funding that we're trying to raise is over 51% of our budget, then maybe our budget's not big enough.
Yeah.
You know, and I hate saying that as a libertarian. It physically pains me to talk about raising revenues for the state, but you know, I'm a
regular Republicans have forced libertarians to talk about raising taxes.
Yeah, it's been painful because you know there are a lot of libertarians who are, for lack of a better word, anarchists, like we've mentioned already. You know, and they, you know, the vice chair of the Libertarian Party is all about abolishing government schools, but I think that, you know, when we look at the Constitution, our governing document, it provides for like promoting the general welfare and,
right,
you know, ensuring domestic tranquility. And I think education is part of one of these core functions that government can and should fulfill, because not everyone can afford private education. Not everyone can afford to homeschool. Not everyone's qualified to homeschool. And so, you know, unless we're going to just say, okay, well, if you aren't rich, you don't get to get an education, then, you know, we're taking about 250 steps backwards in terms of the timeline.
Well, that brings me actually to my next question. You talked about, as a libertarian, wanting to raise taxes in order to fund the government at its most basic levels. One of your concrete positions that I found on your Facebook page, it's still in its infancy, is why there's not a lot of information there. That's not a slight.
New campaign.
New campaign, brand new.
Exciting.
You talk about raising the GPT, that's the gross production tax, to 6.25. That would put us under Texas and above Utah in terms of what our rate is for the state. The House, at the end of the last session, failed to get it to 4% from its current 2%. They couldn't raise it 2 points. And you want to raise it 4.25 points. That's rather ambitious, especially for a libertarian. I'm sure that pains you greatly.
It really and truly does.
Yeah,
I'm not exaggerating when I said I've lost sleep over how I want to run this campaign.
He's a good libertarian. He's authentic libertarian.
It's one of those things, like, you know, austerity is not the answer for failing public schools, for, you know, a Department of Health that might have to be
gross production tax.
Yeah.
Mr. Levy.
So to answer your question more directly, nothing's changed since they tried to raise it in the last session, but hopefully it will in November. We've got candidates across the state who are running on education platforms. I mean, I think that's the new litmus test in primaries and the general election. Where do you stand on education? And I think we're kind of at a moment where there's a clash between the people who think the government is large enough, spends enough. You know, I don't want to give any more of my money to something that's already not doing its job. I mean, we rank near the bottom of the heap in most educational rankings. Not for lack of trying on behalf of the teachers. I don't want to make it seem like that. But I think we should, I mean, raising the gross production tax just makes sense to me. I mean, we have companies in here that are after a finite resource. Once it's gone, it's gone. I mean,
that's long-term libertarianism right there. You're realizing it's going to be gone.
Right. And I mean, and that's the thing, you know, like, we are below other states. And, you know, I read articles and that, you know, the shills for the oil companies say 7% is just too high. That makes us uncompetitive. Okay, so 7% is too high. Let's just dock it most of a percentage point. 6.25. I mean, if I was in office and the bill came in and it had a 7% gross production tax, I wouldn't balk at that if it meant money going to the schools. Because, I mean, like I said, I think that raising the funding for schools is an investment in the future.
Yeah, their kids are going to some of these. Some of these employees have kids going to school, not the top ones, but
right. Yeah, no. I mean, the roughnecks still have to send their kids to school. And maybe they can't afford a private one. But yeah, so I mean, I think we should appreciate the fact that we do have these job providers, these job creators here in the energy industry but they're not going to be here forever. You know, I don't know how long it's going to take for them to get all the oil out of the ground. I'm not qualified to offer any opinions or forecasts on that. But I mean, that's something we have to think about. And if we're just going to let them come in and take some of the most valuable resources that we have that are, you know, here naturally abundant, then we need to make sure we're, you know, getting our money's worth out of that, you know. And I understand how that sounds to a lot of liberty-minded people. That's just the state, you know. We're coming to ransack the money you've earned, but at a certain point, like, earthquakes definitely weren't happening like they were when I was my daughter's age, and I don't, again, not qualified to actually point fingers, but
How frequent are teacher strikes?
Things that make you scratch your chin.
Yeah.
Well, they happen about every 30 years, from what I've gleaned.
Yeah,
But
unnatural circumstances.
yeah, so I mean, like I said, to answer your question, nothing's changed, but hopefully it will. I think things will. I believe that we can see that change, and hopefully this November.
Excellent. Well, the election is coming up in November, and everybody's got to figure out who they're going to vote for. My candidate for governor dropped out. I'm assuming a sex scandal. I don't get to decide, but there's a lot of candidates for governor. Have you made any choices?
If it makes you feel any better, there's a lot of that going around lately.
Yeah. It's not.
I have. I mean,
In the air.
obviously, my first pick has to be a libertarian, right? So, I mean, from the libertarians, we got Joe Exotic.
I've seen that.
Yeah, Rex Lawhorn. Hey, you know, Joe does a lot for party visibility, if not necessarily helping the party.
He does
People
a lot
hear
for
about
visibility,
us.
period.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so we got Joe Exotic, we have Rex Lawhorn, we have Chris Powell, and I'm going with Chris Powell, you know, for what it's worth for any
That's a shame,
libertarians.
because if you voted for Chris Exotic, I would definitely vote for you.
Exotic,
That's a
yeah.
shame.
Well, you know, we can talk after.
Ostentatious
see.
fellow.
But Chris
Well,
Powell is
why?
the one closest
Why
to
Chris
me,
Powell?
I'd say, on platform in terms of, you know, there's an inherent trade-off with a party that the rank and file members wish the government would disappear at the snap of a finger and we'd go to some sort of anarcho-capitalist utopia, you know. And sure, I wish that would happen too.
Cass
Cass
just
is vomiting
threw
in
up.
his
He
mouth.
threw up a little on his
Gagging a
shirt.
little bit. His definition of anarchist is very different from my definition of
Well, I
anarchist.
did say anarcho-capitalist. I'm not just.
No, I know.
There
Yeah.
are many different breeds of
Got the
anarchists.
butting heads of
that
a
right.
left-leaning
Repping that
anarchist
yellow and black.
and a libertarian. Yeah, we got a yellow and black versus a red and black in here.
But there's an inherent trade-off between people who are ANCAPs and decide, you know what?
Can't you be orange?
I want to.
Go ahead.
No, God, awful. See, I'm
syndicalism?
on the red side
I don't know.
of political bedlam, but
Same here.
no,
A lot just.
Well,
a
we'll
lot of
establish
colors
who
just
we
got thrown
are.
Out.
We'll establish who we are. We're gonna shoot for orange right now.
But yeah, so I mean, there's an inherent trade-off between
Cowboys.
being a basically anarcho-capitalist rank and file party, and you know, okay, but you have to govern. You know, you can't run on and I'm going to burn this mother to the ground. That
Right.
doesn't work. No one's going to vote for you. You have to play. You have to, you know, if you want to change the rules, you have to play by the rules that exist.
Wait, is that what you want to do? You want to burn it to the ground?
God, no.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
but that I've already taken on my Facebook campaign page. I've taken some heat from another libertarian, basically telling me I'm a socialist for supporting government schools. You know, and like, yeah, you know,
You're not a
in
socialist.
right? Yeah, in a perfect world, I would be. If I knew I could trust everyone to just keep doing their job, and we'd all just be like, okay, no money. I don't. Where's
It's almost like you've been around people before.
Right.
You know, just not many people can just do their jobs well.
No, but so yeah, so there's an inherent trade-off. So Chris Powell is one who I would say is the most fit to govern. He's open to increasing funding for education. He's open to increasing the gross production tax. These are, I mean, he and I see eye to eye. I mean, without ever having actually discussed these topics with him, he and I see eye to eye on most of these things. We take different paths to get there in some cases. Like, he's against vouchers because he thinks that is government picking winners and losers. I think that a voucher program just presents all kinds of logistical difficulties. You know, like, what if everyone decides, you know, for instance, in Edmond, what if everyone decides they want to go to Edmond Memorial? Like, are we just going to close down Santa Fe? Like,
Right.
Are we just going to have this huge building that just sits empty? Maybe we'll sell it out for office space, you know? But
Sweet laser tag place.
right?
Oh, high schools would make the best.
Oh,
laser
that'd be
tag
so
places.
great.
Paintball,
So great.
zombie role-playing stuff. The options are out there. But, you know, so I think voucher problems present their own logistical problems, just like, you know, education platform, like I would love to say I'm into merit pay, but then we switch the focus from educating to testing. Because that's the only. I mean, like we'd have to talk about what metrics we're using to judge performance. And there's a really cute baby in the room now.
Oh, thank God, you look like your mom. Hi, Grayson.
He does not know what to make of the bearded fellow.
Can I hold him?
Did you want him?
Oh, I wanted Chandler to meet him.
Can I-
Okay. Well, you said to bring him in.
You're much smaller than my baby.
Hi.
How old is he? He's only like 5 or
your
6
name?
months,
It's
right?
about to be 4.
4 months. 4 months.
He's a Gerber baby. If I ever saw one.
Yeah, he's a cutie.
He's so mad he's a ways
He's
out
fine.
now.
Baby's first podcast.
Can we shake hands, Mr. Grayson? Baby's first podcast. Oh, you must have just woke up.
Oh, poor little guy.
How long did he sleep for? He looks so tired.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, he's just like mine. He's kicking off his socks. That never stops.
The socks are so amazing.
Yeah, Millie's a target. We can go after her.
Maybe. It depends on how much he's like Joey.
Continue on.
Still prepping my boy.
You wanna?
Well done. That is a cute baby.
Right?
Well done.
You picked a good one.
See, as a man who's had children, it's always like, good job. No. I showed up. I had some fun. And then I made midnight grocery runs. I was the support staff. I definitely
Yeah.
didn't do any of the hard work. That's like, I'm the water boy on the Super Bowl team. I didn't do anything.
Thank you, women everywhere, for life.
Yeah.
This podcast is brought to you by women,
Totally.
bringing life to the world. Anyway.
But yeah, so I think there's an inherent trade-off whenever you want to govern and be taken seriously. So I think that's whole part of, what the purists will say compromising on the platform is. But, I think that now is the time for unorthodox methods from unorthodox sources, and they shouldn't just be dismissed out of hand. That's really what I'm kind of counting on when running this campaign, that people are willing to listen to something that they may not have agreed with 6 months ago. But you know what? We're all kind of up a creek without a stick, to throw in a colloquialism. But we're in it, and we've got to figure out a way to get out of it. And what we're doing isn't working, and that's pretty much my refrain for my campaign for this election. What we're doing isn't working, and hey, just so you know, libertarians haven't been in power like ever in this state. So just, I don't know, toss us the keys.
Let's throw caution to
What's
the
the
wind.
worst that can happen?
Well, one of the best things that can happen is eating at one of Edmund's fine eating establishments. You're in District 81. I'm in District 81. What's your favorite restaurant to eat at?
Okay, so I'm going to give 2 answers to this, because
Oh.
there's a boring one, and then there's like an only in HD 81 one. So,
You're going to bring a chain into this conversation?
I mean, Hideaway, like the Hideaway in
The Hideaway
Edmond-
in Stillwater. Okay, Oklahoma listeners, there is one Hideaway, and then there are a bunch of knockoffs. The Hideaway in Stillwater is the place.
I don't know,
The
the
rest have the taste, but they don't got that authentic oven.
The Hideaway
that's
on
fine.
Cherry Street in Tulsa is pretty good.
I'm sure it's pretty good, but I mean, the Hideaway in Stillwater is the place. Well, we could talk about this for
Listen,
hours, literally hours. I'll
local
talk
chain,
about
Best,
local
pi-
chain,
best
that's
pizza,
good.
Local
best
chain is
pizza,
good.
best environment, the kites, classic rock, more
Classic.
often than not. I just enjoy it. My kids love it. There's the X-wing.
Give us the
kite.
non-chain answer, Mr.
The non-chain
Corporate.
is 3 tequilas.
There we
Okay,
go.
Right there off
There we go.
Broadway. It's just it's really authentic, and you're always gonna have Telemundo or some
Yes,
Spanish
football.
language soccer match on. Yes, and
Shout out 3 Tequilas. Please bring us some food. We will talk about you more.
but yeah, and like I said, that's kind of the flavor of Edmond pick I'd have.
No,
'cause if I was-
that's a great.
If I was going to take
choice.
someone at a hole in the wall, and I mean that's just within the district, because I mean obviously like just on the other side of the train tracks, just outside the district, there's a Brazilian place that I've heard is really good that I've been meaning to go over and try. But there's only finite choices in this world.
And you're not running for those other districts, so I mean, you're going to 3
darn it.
Tequilas.
You got to make 81 feel special.
Well, trying to save on some time here, not run too long, but I got 2 quick questions for you too. Cass
Fire away.
got some of the more, I guess, hardball ones out of the way. We agree a lot more. But I've thought for a while that Oklahoma has really close ties with traditional energy companies, fossil fuels, petroleum, whatever. And I've kind of thought that's kind of putting all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak. I think maybe that'll hurt our economy in the future. I don't know if you agree, but if you do, how big of a priority is investing in alternative energy sources to you? And if so, how would you accomplish this ideally?
Right. Yeah. Some of my earlier comments probably hinted. I agree with you. I mean, it's finite resource, and I think it's our best, most efficient option right now. I think it'll do the best job that we're trying to do. But like, eventually, we've already said this. The oil's going to be gone. We're eventually a human will use the last of the oil on Earth, and then
But humans need oil. We need oil.
Sure, but so I think we should explore. I mean, obviously, funding education to me is kind of putting money into the future for alternative fuels.
You tracked better companies who wouldn't mind sending their kids.
I think
here.
education invites investment. I
Absolutely.
think that if we are in the upper, fifth of states, if we start hitting the 16, 17, 18, 15th range in terms of education performance, we'll see different industries be willing to invest in Oklahoma. And I'm not trying to say necessarily we're going to be the next Silicon Valley here on the plains.
Right.
But I who knows? Who knows? But I mean, the leaders in Oklahoma City, I'm plug myself. I'm going to law school starting in the fall, and I was at an event.
Oh, I wasn't going to say that. I was going to be like, he knows everything about the law. He don't need school.
But I was at an event for Oklahoma City University, and we just had some people from the Oklahoma City Chamber, and they're just, the people in the chamber are obviously very excited about the future. But I mean, when they lay it out, it makes sense. We're at, like I mentioned earlier, we're moving into the second century of Oklahoma history, and they're projecting that we're going to grow as much as we did in the first century within the next 20 years. So we're looking at demographic shifts just from reproduction, from net migration, illegal, legal, whatever, migration. And so I mean, I think we're looking at a different future. So I think we need to invest in the education to show other companies that, hey, once these people leave, because that's one of the things, if we raise the gross production tax, what if they leave? Well, the oil's not going anywhere. And, if they want it, they'll eventually have to come here and play ball.
Right.
So, like I said, I think we should value them for the jobs they create and the way they do buoy our economy during recessions when the oil industry is good. But it is putting all of our eggs in one basket. And, I mean, obviously we have the windmill farms. And I want to say I'm open to more of those, but I've heard that there can be some net negative effects on natural life.
Well,
around
like
them,
Trump said, yeah, I mean they're killing all the eagles. I don't know how many eagles we have left.
which is sad, obviously.
Jeremy, you mind
Which one
googling
of
how
you
many?
is being sarcastic?
I'm just quoting.
I'm not being
Trump.
sarcastic.
I'm just quoting Trump.
I know people from Western Oklahoma who hate the sight of those windmills, and to me, if I had to drive past a row of windmills, but it meant my electricity was cheaper, ask me if I care.
How much cheaper though are we talking?
Well, that's the thing.
You don't know. I don't know either. I'm
And
asking.
honestly, my libertarian solution would be for everyone to have their own solar panel or
Right.
2 or 10 on their house, and everyone should try to power.
but
Okay,
State charges
apparently
for
we're getting
those.
big
Okay.
reactions. How many?
From the Smithsonian Mag, according to the current literature, somewhere between 140,000 and 328,000 birds die each year from collisions with wind turbines. So obviously, there's an ecological effect on those. I mean,
We can call it eagle genocide.
eagle cleansing. But yeah, so with the solar panel idea, I mean, I think there should be tax breaks involved if you're doing your part to help make a more sustainable energy future. Then there should be.
Do you think subsidies on wind farms too?
Eventually those have to end. The tax breaks have to end eventually because they
Yeah.
were just setting up the same cycle that we have with the oil companies where if we
Absolutely.
raise it, then the wind energy companies are going to leave. And, so eventually you have to pay the piper. But, as libertarian, I'm just gritting my teeth.
No,
and
you're very
talking
common
about
sense libertarian.
Subsidies
That's what
for
I've gotten.
solar panels and tax credits for them. And, because I think, I think socialism, communism, libertarianism, kind of what Cass was touching on, they're end goal systems. You can't just, you have to make steps to transition into it. You can't just.
We're not living in them now. That's for sure.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. If my push for greater, as I see it, liberty is not going to happen overnight, even if I'm elected, I want to legalize and tax marijuana. I think a huge component of that is expungements for possession crimes. Because we can't.
Okay, there we go. That's good.
Because we can't just
Might
say.
have just won Cass's vote here.
Right? Because we can't just say, well, okay, it's cool now, and then leave however hundreds of thousands, millions of young black men and women in prison once we've said it's okay. Because I think it's one of the greater moral failings of the last century is this war on poverty, the war on drugs, and how we've criminalized, just behavior. No, one of the things, non-aggression principle is huge in the Libertarian Party. No victim, no crime. Who are you hurting if you're sitting on your couch smoking marijuana? Heck, take it a step further. If you're snorting cocaine and you're just going to chill on your couch, you're not hurting anyone except yourself. And I don't think it's the government's job to protect you from yourself in hardly any aspect. I think that we need to realize that we live in a mature adult society, and that people are already making these choices.
Right.
But right now, they're making those choices under the threat of imprisonment, possible death if they decide that they don't want to go to prison and they decide they need to run from the police. We've seen that there's a great willingness to shoot and say, I feared for my life, and I'll throw that out there and just kind of let that lie. But, it's just one of those things. Like, all this takes time, because if I were to get elected, obviously, like, barring a sea change, a blue wave of sorts, then I'm not going to find, I don't think...
I got bad news for you. That might be coming.
Right?
Keep going.
I don't think I'm going to find too many sympathetic ears or voices in the legislature, especially not as it's currently composed. I mean, we have efforts to legislate and regulate the state question regarding medical marijuana before we've even voted on it. We've already decided we need to slap some regulations on that, because God forbid that we just trust doctors to write these prescriptions should it be legalized. But it's just it's all progress, which is one step at a time, trying to get to where we're going. But I
just got something from our producer that kind of supplements your point. Not necessarily in Oklahoma, but 52% of all drug arrests in 2010, one of the last years we have data for it, were marijuana. 52%. That's
Right.
exactly
And,
goes with what you're saying.
And that's the thing. Like, the United States government declared war on a plant, and the plant is winning. It's not even close. Like, and the thing is there's law and order.
That's a great quote.
I'm going to steal that line.
That might be the name of this episode.
That's pretty
great.
meme-tacular.
The plant is winning.
The plant is winning. Also, a summary of the Donald Trump campaign. But it's just one of those things that.
Yeah. Producer also pointed out the plant is winning. For some of our more hippie, I guess, people, today is a special day for them, but we can go on. Plant is winning would be a great title.
What, Hitler's birthday?
Hitler's birthday, yes. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, I
Everyone
think
knows
I'm
that.
up to date on that.
April
reference.
20th. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah. So I mean, like, I do think we have all of our eggs in one basket, and it's a basket that is like slowly. There's a string that's holding up that basket, and it's slowly beginning to fray, and eventually there's going to be a big drop, and all of our eggs are going to crack.
Let's try and beat that.
I'd like to.
Speaking
set
of
up
cracking
other
eggs, actually not really speaking of cracking eggs. I was trying to make a metaphor in my head about comparing old people to cracking eggs, and yeah, I don't know. Don't listen to my train of thought. But basically, what would you say to some of Oklahoma's more, and this is why I was saying older people, but older people, more hardline conservatives who aren't necessarily as, and we don't really like this word, but aren't necessarily as liberal as you and other libertarian candidates.
I mean, I would say socially that I am
Social
liberal.
issues, yeah. I mean, how do you bridge that
I have
gap?
no problem putting that away. I mean, going back even to the 19th century in London, like, liberal is not necessarily a dirty word in my vocabulary. But I mean, if I were to be able to sit down in the living rooms of these sorts of people and talking to them, I mean, I would try to relate to them. And that's the thing. Like, growing up, I was super Republican. I until about the year 2012. I mean, like, I first started my path towards libertarianism through Ron Paul. He has his own issues that we don't need to discuss here. But that's how I got plugged into it, was through the Republican Party. And so I've just, I'm going to throw out some scare quotes here. I've softened towards social issues. And it's because I've changed how I view the government's role. Like,
Did having kids do that? Because I'm starting to notice that a little bit with me.
Like, obviously, like, I've always had the position that if my kid was gay, it wasn't going to change how I felt towards them. They're not getting written out of the will.
Yeah.
They're not getting kicked out. Nothing like that, But that doesn't necessarily mean I was supporting, marriage equality at the time. But that's the thing. Like, I started asking questions that begin with, should the government decide who you can marry? Should the government be picking winners and losers? Should the government decide what you can put in your body? Should the government decide how much you think your time is worth when it comes to a minimum wage? How many people who are vagrant, homeless, how many of them would work for $5 an hour, cash, under the table, doing dishes, bussing tables? But, we've got laws that say you can't do that, and obviously that's an entirely different argument to open up. But
We've got time. We'll get there. No.
But so like I said, I changed the way I looked at the government, and the government, I like to think of them as someone you kind of like a parent as an adult. You might go to them when you're in trouble, but for your day-to-day stuff, like just you don't.
I think it's very.
Your mom
apt.
doesn't need
Yeah.
to pick out your shoes for you once you're 25. You know, she doesn't need to say what you need to wear. I mean, if you do, I apologize. I'm not trying to offend.
Stop
anybody.
picking out our shoes, government. We got this.
But yeah, I think when government grows, liberty shrinks. Whether that's saying you can't put something in your body or you can't, you know, we talked about, you know, this sort of thing. You can't reserve the right for yourself to not serve somebody, you know, whether that be a Christian bakery who doesn't want to bake a cake for a gay couple, or whether that's, you know, a black gentleman who runs a barbecue joint and a neo-Nazi walks in. He can, you know, say, I don't want your money. I mean, I'm more of an opinion that if the check clears, money spends, you know, but
Right.
that's just me. So there's this Greek term. Let me sound all intellectual here. There's a Greek term from the history of Athens, and it's isonomos, which basically just means equality before the law. So to me as a libertarian, if there is a government, and I think that if nothing else, we're so dependent upon it that just to get rid of it would be a bad thing, to just throw it all out the window. But if there is to be a government, it must be equal. All rights must be guaranteed equally to all people. And, you know, whether that's the tax code, whether that's laws, because, you know, I hope we have time, because if you look back at the history of this country, there's just so many instances of a lack of equality of opportunity, which has led to I feel like a perpetuation of a lack of equality of outcomes.
Now, that lack of opportunity is intrinsically tied to these social issues are intrinsically tied to economic issues.
Absolutely.
So how can you be socially conservative when...
I wouldn't call myself socially
Or,
conservative.
excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Socially liberal and fiscally conservative when the fiscal issues are directly affecting the social issues.
Right, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, the system needs, I hate to use like religious terminology because I'm not like that, but we need to purify these things. We need to look at the inequalities, the inefficiencies, the parts where we have codified, you know, socioeconomic issues into a thing. You know, when you look at the Ferguson police report from the FBI, and they're talking about how they would essentially hit up the low income, which, you know, we talked about classism and racism and how those things are intertwining, because for the longest time, you know, white America was content to let black America eat scraps and go to their own schools and have their own water fountains and have their own separate economy from, you know, more or less. And now we're integrating, and now it becomes that, well, I may have to go to school with them, but that doesn't mean I have to like them. Well, I may have to teach them, but that doesn't mean I have to help them. And I feel like when all that happened, the people who believed that were the ones writing these policy books. They were the ones coming up with the standard operating procedures. And I don't think it's any coincidence that now that we're starting to move forward as a society, that we're seeing these kinds of rubs, these natural conflicts between where we want to be and where we are. Change isn't, it's never talked out. I'm never going to sit down with a social conservative necessarily and convince them that marriage equality is a good idea, unless they buy into the whole it's not the government's job thinking. That's checkmate right off the bat, and you're just glad that they were listening. But change is almost always a leap forward. I mean, that's been true. 14th Amendment, the Civil Rights Act, the Obergefell v. Hodges for marriage equality. All these things are quantum leaps forward, and usually without support from a majority of the country, or at least in terms of like geographically, if not necessarily a population majority. But the 14th Amendment obviously was passed over the high objections of southern states. Civil Rights Act was passed with just Republican votes, not a single Democrat voted for it. And obviously the Supreme Court's the one who jumped us forward on marriage equality. These sorts of things are quantum leaps, and then within 1 to 3 generations it becomes the new norm, and people can't imagine it going back.
You're defining the government as a system that's necessary in order for these advancements to take place.
You know, I think that the legal advancements, the legal protections that the government can codify to the extent that the government should be equal. Like I said, I think that if you object to someone coming in with, you know, swastikas plastered all over themselves, you have the right to say, I'm not going to serve you because I'm not I don't agree with you, and I think that someone like you should be rejected from the market. So I think that the state has proven it can be helpful for social change and moving forward. I'm not saying that that's necessarily its job, but sometimes you have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, I guess.
Well, no, I think you're entirely spot on, Jeff. Honestly, we could probably both talk to you for another couple hours, but we need to wrap this up for brevity's sake. Levy for House District 81. Your Facebook page is what?
My Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Levy4OK81. That's Levy, the number 4 OK81, and that will get you to any social media page that you can
awesome,
think to find.
man.
Except for like Pinterest and Tumblr, like.
He's
I'm the
getting
big
to
three.
this. He's getting to this.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
No, man, it was great having you on, brother.
Pleasure being on.
Yeah, he's definitely, as first guest, he's going to be coming back. Will at some point before we even got in here. Yeah, before we even got in here, we were just rehashing this just epic war about the new Star Wars movie, which will have to be broadcasted soon.
We'll get Jeff back
top
in
three
here. Star Wars
Patreon.
film.
Yeah, hopefully, whenever we get Jeff back in here, he's District 81's representative, and we can talk some Star Wars.
Heck yeah!
I would not reveal your Star Wars beliefs before then. It might cost you votes.
You know, if people are making policy choices based on the Last Jedi,
We're doing pretty good, right?
This is how our democracy dies with thunderous applause.
Amidala quote. Oh, awesome, Jeff. It was good having you, buddy.
Glad to be on the original.
Oh yeah, inaugural, big guy,
It only
future
gets better
president.
from here.
Yes, sir. We're gonna, I guess, try and do some recurring segments. One of the ones we talked about today was controversial opinions. We're not gonna really do it political or religious or whatever, but more media. And we instantly disagreed about this, me and Cass. So that was great. I think that The Wolf of Wall Street is an incredibly overrated film. I thought it wasn't one of Scorsese's best. You could see him kind of aging stylistically. I thought what was so great about so many of Scorsese's movies was the subtlety and not only the dialogue, but the character expression and development. And I'm just really not a fan. To borrow from Steven Crowder, changed my mind.
Well, you talk about subtlety in a movie about the least subtle group of people in the world, investment bankers or people who play the stock market. Look, if you're looking at the movie as a whole, it's a spiritual sequel to Goodfellas. It's stylistically identical. However,
You just hurt my soul with that. Keep going.
It has modern sensibilities. It's got this. It's of its time. So you have to watch it as a product of its time. It has to be of its time. It's commenting on something that happened in the 80s. It's a perfect metaphor for what's happening today.
That's fair. Maybe part of it is just getting
and
so
Leonardo DiCaprio is an American treasure.
Oh, he is.
Matthew McConaughey is preposterous, and
Yeah, I was gonna
you gotta
say.
watch him on screen.
Yeah, I was going to say. Now, and part of that might be, I'm just seeing all future Scorsese through the lens of the guy who directed Goodfellas, the guy who directed Mean Streets, the guy who directed the first episode of The Sopranos, and, like, anytime he tries something new, I'll obviously
He
be like,
directed
that's
the
not-
first episode of The Sopranos?
Yeah,
That's
he did.
nonsense.
Yeah. Isn't that great?
I had no idea.
Yeah, isn't that great?
I had no idea.
Have you
I'm
seen The
very happy
Sopranos?
about it. I've seen bits and pieces.
Can you fact check that real quick? I'm pretty sure he did. But anyway, yeah, no, I mean, and you might be right. Maybe he just made a movie that was great for our time, and I was just like, well, it's not like Goodfellas. But
Well, if you're comparing everything to Goodfellas,
I mean, I'm
you
not
will
trying to
be
compare
found wanting.
everything. I'm just saying that wasn't my Scorsese, and maybe it's just I don't like movies
prime
that are
Scorsese.
super over the top. I mean, I liked The Great Gatsby book. Wasn't crazy about the movie.
Don't care for either.
No, that's fair. I mean,
If you're looking
he
for-
was
To be fair,
suppressive.
I don't think that The Great Gatsby was a Scorsese. That was Baz Luhrmann.
No, I mean, yeah. Oh no, I'm just talking
Who
about
you
like,
think would be perfect for Great Gatsby, but here we are.
Yeah.
If anything, the Great Gatsby of our time is The Wolf of Wall Street.
No, I could see that. I guess I was more making the connection between Leonardo. Is that really not true? Am I just really look up The Sopranos and Martin Scorsese? See why I thought that.
If you get this question wrong, I win.
Yeah, no. If I get this question wrong, I mean, Cass just is he inherits the podcast. My desk at work.
It's a good desk.
It's a good desk.
Well positioned.
Yeah, we
Cue
we're
the
waiting.
Jeopardy thing.
Yeah, we're waiting on Jeremy, one of our producers, our typing producer, not our sound producer.
Can't do that. We'll get sued.
Yes, sir.
Do.
Maybe I'm just completely wrong on that. And credibility, major hit, first episode.
And you're the one who's supposed to agree with me. That doesn't help.
So communism wins is what we've discovered.
Well, I'm just completely wrong about that. Okay, so
Where did that come from? That's a really specific thought.
I
though.
could have sworn
know why you
that
thought
I
that.
thought that. I know I've repeated that to my old roommate Reese. I've repeated that to several people. Like, I'm pretty sure I remembered seeing that in the first episode. I was like, dude, you like this show? Scorsese directed the first episode, and now we know that's
That
all a
sounds
lie.
like something you heard from your dad, and
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
repeated it
Just
thinking
repeat
it. Was
it.
fact.
Yeah, I mean, fake news, and it just becomes real news.
Yeah.
It becomes real
it's
news.
An alternative director.
Right. Well, I guess we can wrap this up. Obviously, we've plugged Jeff for District 81. We have a Facebook page, Political Bedlam. Like us. We're trying to set up a Twitter page soon. We have our producer. We're going to plug his music soon. We need to talk about that. He makes music. Upcoming interviews. We've talked to former Governor Frank Keating. He said he would be welcome. He'd be willing to do an interview. We've talked to Chad Moody. He'd be willing to do an interview. We are currently in talks with Senator Langford. I've been talking to his press secretary. She said that he could probably do it too, but we don't have a definite date on that. My uncle, Kevin Ogle, is going to come on soon. We just need to work that out. So we got some good guests coming up. Leading off with the best one, though. Future political superstar Jeff Levy. Yeah, you got anything to plug?
I'm a little in shock after that list of people. That those are like Oklahoma prime.
People are itching to pod, bro.
We're getting.
I'm
you guys are
digging
getting
it.
some heavy hitters.
I'm digging it. No, I will be more coherent in the future. I'll have less word vomit, and we're gonna have a good time.
Absolutely.
Things are gonna get good.
Yes, they are. I appreciate everyone listening to the first episode. We'll be back sometime next week.
Like I'm so cold, standing in my zone, feeling like I'm cold, feeling like I'm so cold, yo, flow, show me where to go, feeling like I know,
Yo, listen.
Step in my mind and get lost in my dreams. Chill on the water, he's life on the beach. Riding these waves, don't get lost in the streams. You ever get lost, I'm always in reach. That's what I know, change up the flow. Look at the way that I go. I'm trying to get me some dough, carry some more. I cannot manage to fold.
like I'm so cold, standing in my zone.